All right, hey everybody, we are currently reviewing the latest iDate. This is iDate LA 2018 with a focus on mobile. So I'm here with Dan and Alex, I'm Steve, and here we go. Let's see, what was your favorite takeaway from the entire iDate?
I came here for networking and a lot of other purposes, but the biggest takeaway for me is, I would say the biggest takeaway for me is even though we talk about a lot of technology at this conference, I was kind of surprised how a lot of them translated it to real situations that are being really used by real applications and real websites today. I think that for me was very unusual because I looked at, we talked a lot of technology, but a lot of it was not so technical in the end. It really came down to how things are practically used in the industry today, and I thought that was great.
Yeah. Now, it was definitely very focused on the AI, which was the theme Mark Lesnick wanted to focus on for this iDate conference in Los Angeles. But for me, the biggest benefit that I'm getting living now after 2 days, almost 3, is the connections that I have made with the people. Honestly, it's very hard. The dating industry is global. To be able to meet peers in your industry, because obviously, cold calling them seems a little bit like you're fishing for abusive information that you would be using against them in a competitive manner. Whereas here, it didn't feel at all that way. It felt like we could all be friends, and in a way, that's kind of what it is. We are, even though we are somewhat, if you are in the same industry of dating, you could be competitors. It takes a lot of effort to actually be competing to hand on hand with somebody. So I definitely feel like meeting you, for example, has brought a lot of value for my future business, and I'm sure I'm benefiting from it greatly.
So this has probably been my 5th or 6th iDate, and it's always been like that. The iDate at this conference, maybe I've been going for 10 years on and off, and this conference has always had big companies to tiny companies open up and really give away a lot of information, and that's because they're more comfortable and it's interpersonal, one-on-one. Same thing. I've tried contacting companies because I'm having to do some networking, and they're looking at me as competition, so they don't call me back. But here we've made some contacts that we wouldn't normally make.
Yeah, exactly.
I really like, my favorite parts are those, I love the talks when you get to learn something that you've never heard before, or you get to learn some industry figures, or even particular apps that will share some of their user numbers, their retention rates, and you're like, oh shit, I did not realize. It helps you benchmark where you are when you hear popular companies explain a little bit more about their inner stats, and you don't get that anywhere else. They're not going to publish that. They're going to share it because they feel like it's a relatively safe environment to be able to do so. But beyond the talks, I really like the dinners. I like not the dinner, but the lunches, the breakfast, the times when we get to sit down and actually just shoot the shit with each other.
Yeah.
Because that's when you get to know that this is not just a representative of a company, they're a person too. And you get to be able to, if you really engage at all, you can find other opportunities throughout the event to chat further. There's lots, we're at Sportsmen's Lodge right now, so we have so many little places, nooks and crannies around here, so we can easily just grab someone, go talk over at that picnic table, grab talk by the water. We've had events in the evenings too that both Marks have been organizing. Some for gatherings, drinking wine, other ones for more dinners. It's been great. I just love the experience of being able to put faces to names and to be able to come away not just with business cards, but with actual people that I'm going to be able to call up anytime later.
Yes.
Let's get into the specific talks though. Okay. I want to give a little bit of an overview of what each experience was like. How did you approach these talks? What did you learn from them? We'll start with the keynote from day
fantastic.
1. That was Ewan Gillespie at Watson.
Great presentation. So good. That was when he first started. I knew I was going to be a speaker. I got the shivers a little bit. I was like, okay, it's going to be a really interesting time to go after his presentation, because it was very well done. He's not even a professional of the dating industry. He's in the matchmaking, but for businesses with employees or people looking for jobs. But he did a substantial amount of research on dating and did a really great presentation. the key point that I take away from this piece for me was the concept of looking post-date to get data, which would change the recommendation the AI would make if they didn't have that data of post-date success or failure.
Yeah, you can optimize your site. Like the key finding of AI all throughout this conference is like, if you train your AI to do something, it's not necessarily going to do the thing that makes users happier or better off. It just does the thing that is the natural response to the training data, or the natural response to like getting to the goal that you set. But if your goal is just more matches, then yeah, you're going to have 50,000 more matches, but it doesn't mean that your users are happier. It doesn't mean they're spending more money. It doesn't mean that they're actually getting into relationships. So what are your actual goals you're setting for the AI? Like that's one of the key findings. And I think when he explained it, when Ewing explained, like if you compare dating to job matching, if you just show someone 1 million job listings, that doesn't mean that you've succeeded. Like, what matters is whether they actually got the job, whether they were happy and successful in the job, and whether they would come back to your service again to look for another job. And so how often do dating sites ever get to track that kind of data? How often do they even know or care to track what their users are doing after they left the app? A lot of times they just stop right there. They're like, oh, our users were messaging and then they left, and so we assume that they matched. Like, you can't make that assumption. It's really difficult. And I think that kind of segues us nicely into Mark Brooks's talk right after that, where he covered the entire overview of the dating industry. And one of the things he mentioned was like a closure to that thought was what happens when Facebook breaks into the industry, because Facebook knows if you're in a relationship, because you literally tell it to the public, you change your relationship status. And so they know if Facebook has a dating platform and you can see that like, okay, these two people were messaging and then they both changed their relationship status to dating one another, Facebook has closed the loop. And so it may be the case that Facebook, even if their dating platform isn't the most successful one, other dating platforms could just be able to ask Facebook for, hey, did these two people, who both logged in with Facebook, have they changed their relationship status? So like that kind of information, if it were made available, could be something that actually boosts the entire industry. Yeah. What else did you get from Mark's talk?
He covered a chart that you had covered actually, and that has that chart where it says people are relatively unhappy with the whole online dating in general and mobile apps, and how only one tiny little speck of positive is in there for Tinder. And so generally speaking, what we're saying is the industry is going to change, or the industry is not what people, there's still a lot of dissatisfaction. I think that chart, for anyone who's new to the dating industry, they can dispute it, but people are unhappy.
It provides hope. It shows that like no one's happy with what exists. Therefore, go build something better. Go address user needs in a more fundamental way.
Well, it's kind of a hope, but also it's a scary thing too, because you really need someone who would have a major outreach, a major impact on the market to actually make the feeling of the general market change and shift. It's not like just a few players that can make it happen. So it would need to be happening on a pretty large scale in order for that shift to happen, and it could happen over time.
But think about Tinder. It only took Tinder 2 years to turn the entire dating industry on its head, and it started from nothing.
Before Tinder, the industry still had a bad reputation.
Yeah.
I mean,
but it hasn't. What we're saying is Tinder has not changed the reputation of the industry. It's actually introduced a game that, it's even like a bigger high school yearbook game with flipping. So that was one of the determinations from that data that people fell for the game, but it didn't necessarily change anything. And
the cool thing is that we know that though. Like what Tinder did was unlock literally 1 billion new users.
Yeah.
It made it so that people, by treating it as a game, not as this stigmatized online dating, oh, you must be a loser because you need to date online, Tinder made it so it's really easy now to simply go on and start dating.
Yeah.
And we learned after Tinder revealed that to us through their product that, oh crap, people don't actually enjoy that process very much. They're not good at messaging. They're not good at setting up dates. They're not good at the whole interpersonal thing or the message. Like they can't even construct a profile when you make it 4 taps long. So we've learned a lot as an industry about where to go from here because of Tinder's example and Tinder's mistakes. So let's keep moving.
Let's talk about S. Lee and his very interesting natural language processing, and this was the chat stuff, right? And
it was greatly interesting, yes.
So
Yeah,
he had
that
a-
was
he
very
had a
interesting.
Crush app would ask for permission to view and read all of your text messages, and then it would basically help predict who likes you most or who's currently likely to like you more based
Yeah.
on the NLP, like just applying NLP to the chat messages to learn as much as they can. And then
Yes.
well, obviously there were a lot of privacy, security concerns that we addressed, that he addressed, and there was also the question of like, is this ethically okay? But after you get through that, then you come to like, this is really powerful data, and he was showing that he can predict with far better accuracy than almost any dating app certain relationship outcomes.
So do you think that like this tech is out there? It just people need to use it in different ways with apps, or it tells you that there's new tech. Having the new tech is always a way to get advantage. Having the new tech, like Tinder was a new tech, but a new process, a new process.
You
So
could
there-
consider it as new technology.
So there's a bunch of new tech, and whoever takes advantage of that new tech and deploys it properly gets an advantage. And he was saying that he had two apps, right?
Yep.
That was very interesting.
Yeah, well, he started with the Crush,
Crush, yeah.
his Crush app, but then the problem with it, which was interesting as an app developer and also like an owner of an app that's trying to grow, that he developed the app, it caught fire because of the attention. Like, who would not like to know if the person you're chatting with is actually attracted to you or not with an algorithm that reads your text messages and gives you an outcome?
Yeah.
That's great, but the problem is that people were just turning on, and then they will read their messages, they will get the answer, and they will turn it off.
Okay, can I tell you
And
why?
they won't use it like.
But I'll tell you what the
on a
problem.
daily
I've
basis?
seen tons of companies that are a feature, like companies that are a dating platform, and there's companies that are a feature. Being a feature is a very tough proposition.
And that's why today he kind of shove away the Crush app, and he's doing the other one, which I forget the name. Do you guys remember it?
May.
MEI.
MEI, right?
It's
Which is
interesting.
now a fully integrated messaging platform, just like WhatsApp would be, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it gives you
With that feature built
insight,
in.
yeah.
So
which is cool.
I'm excited about that.
Very
I think
excited.
if people, one of the challenges we noted even in the final panel debate was that people aren't that good at the whole messaging thing. They need to learn. They need better mechanisms for getting better at the whole process of engaging with other people using written or text language. And so if his app is able to help people with that, then that's a huge boost for the whole industry, because he could begin using that to, like, if he chose to deploy that across every other app, and suddenly every dating app had the opportunity to let you learn how to message better over time. It would be
Yeah,
great.
man, it would be great.
I have a question for you related to that, and that is, the one thing that's happened is all that consolidation, all these companies consolidate, and that's left the door, and Silicon Valley is not investing in dating companies anymore. That's left, and a lot of developers are not making apps anymore because they feel that there's no entrance point. But now we're seeing all this tech that has an entrance point. So we're just not seeing the entrepreneur going for it that often now, right? And the dating site, and because of somebody that got burned, right? So is there a door? You're saying there is a door, an opening somewhere for a company, or not?
I mean, I think the industry has always had relatively wealthy people who say they want to make an app, and they're the sole backer. They'll make it happen. You also have people who know the wealtly people who are going to say, like, "Hey, toss me a couple bucks to make this thing happen." I've seen that plenty of times. A lot of my clients.
Or they
have
stay in
come
a
from
niche,
that.
right?
What's that?
Or they stay in a niche.
In many cases, I think it's really like you don't know whether or not you have the capacity to grow beyond your niche until you grow. Like, you have to actually do it. I think it has been a relatively rough fundraising climate.
Yeah.
It's not to say that there aren't investments still being made. Coffee Meets Bagel just raised $7 million.
That's right.
This past month, and they're not alone. Like, there's still been tens of millions of dollars raised in the industry, if not hundreds of millions. And there's still huge acquisitions. Like, the acquisitions are really the big things that are happening right now. But that's partly where we are as an industry. It's been maturing to the point where there are a few big players that have the funds on hand to be able to make huge acquisitions. They want the new technology. They want the early user bases in new markets. So they'll pay for it. And I think that's still hopeful, because that tells you if you're a niche operator, you have the chance. You don't have to become the biggest player to still exit your company relatively early. You have to get to your 50,000 user count, at which point you get on someone's radar, and then they're like, "Oh, what are you doing that's new? How can that benefit me?" And then you can sell pretty quickly if you know who to talk to.
I'd like to know your opinion on this. On the I thought the Muslim dating stuff
Was so interesting.
Was like probably the most interesting presentation in
It
the
was
whole
fun.
thing.
It was a lot of fun.
Miriam?
She made it super interactive.
Yeah, that was.
So Ash, the new
oh my
Muslim
God, that
dating
was
app.
very interesting.
It was. I think my favorite part of that was just how brutally honest she was. She's like, yeah, Muslims, like millennial Muslims.
about the grandmother and millennial Muslims
Well,
and
like,
how they're
it-
breaking the
Yeah,
they're
like the
revolutionary.
historical expectation is that women, like in many Muslim communities, is that women don't talk to men. Men don't talk
Yeah.
to women unless their family approves or
Yeah.
unless they're at marriage age, ready to go.
Yeah.
And yet you have these millennial Muslims throughout the world who are completely just that world is foreign to them. Like
Absolutely.
they're the ones taking selfies, having brunch, like, and yet they live in a world where like, if they're expected to date other Muslims, then it can be really difficult because they end up with these weird, like, their family's telling them one thing, social media is telling them another thing. And so she made an app that allows for millennial Muslims to feel at home. They can date other Muslims, but in a context in which they're no longer having their grandmother look over their shoulder.
I mean, that was such a good presentation that I mean, we didn't see anyone from Match or some bigger companies here today, and a lot of little companies. But if you're at Match, wouldn't you want to see that presentation? I mean, that was just a killer presentation.
Yeah,
For
I
like
think
large
Matt really
companies.
missed out by
If you're
not being
Muslim, you
here.
would want to see the presentation.
No,
Is
I'm
that
saying
what
if
you're
you're any big dating company, you
Yeah.
would want to see that presentation and understand what's going on. I mean,
With the Muslim
oh yeah,
demographic?
I thought that was phenomenal, and I didn't really expect anything from that presentation, but it was probably one of the best in the whole thing.
Well,
I mean,
from actually this presentation, there's a piece that really surprised me most than everything is she showed at one point the map of the world, and in the United States
God.
she only showed 1,500,000 Muslims that are millennials,
yes,
which is like one of the maps hot spot of the map, which was the lowest,
yeah.
which blew my mind completely. I thought there was many more than that.
Yeah, and there were like 400 million
In,
millennial Muslims
in, like,
in
in
East
Asia.
Asia.
Eastern.
It's like, holy
More,
shit.
that's
like,
more than people in the United States.
That made me question
Yeah.
why she launched in the US.
Crazy.
I was
Yeah.
thinking, like, wait, you have like over 100 times the market size
Very hard
in a different country. I
very
mean,
hard.
it's hard to launch in a country you don't live in, obviously.
obviously.
But a lot of that gives hope for people who are not in the US who want to launch for the Muslim market. Like, there are a lot of people who are within your market that are ready to go, that may want a new form of dating that doesn't involve their grandmother.
But there is a true. Okay, so in Japan, I'll just make this very quick point. Have you read the Modern Romance?
The Aziz Ansari
Yeah,
book?
from Aziz.
I can't bring myself to do it.
No, okay, it's good. It's good. It's good. You should read it. There's a lot of data basically like into it,
Yeah, yeah.
which is why it's interesting. Obviously, he's a funny guy. He's a comic, so it's like fun to read as well. But one piece of the book speaks about Japan specifically and how 25 years ago.
Be loud because we have a
25 years ago, the whole Japan mechanism of getting people to get married was the similar way Muslims do it today, which was families get together, married like choose, if you want, arranged marriages between the male and the female. However, today the families are not doing that anymore, but the women are not emancipated enough to actually like, go on date with guys. So guys are left with basically like the few of the girls that they can find with to play around, which they're not marriage material,
yeah.
right? And they're waiting for like the right person, but they cannot really like go talk to her because otherwise she becomes like that playful material. So there's a huge problem right now for young millennials, let's call them in Japan, to actually like get married because they don't know how to do it. So.
Gotcha.
I think that Hesh with the Muslim is similar in her approach to try to fix that.
Yeah, so I think
I
that
thought
even
that
though
was
you mentioned it,
fascinating.
like fundraising climate can be difficult, but
Yeah.
the needs are there. People desperately need a better way of connecting in modern society, and the current dating landscape is not necessarily serving those needs very well.
Especially on the niche level. I think that's what that Muslim one proved to me, that the niche stuff is phenomenal. Opportunity.
Who else do we want to go into here? I think we have Alan Winters, co-founder at StayGo, talking about the economics of AI. I enjoyed that because StayGo as like a concept was really fun to learn about.
Yeah.
It was all about like how do you decide for yourself, and the AI powers this, whether or not you should stay in the relationship you're in. So it lets you input information about what kind of, like, describe the details of your relationship. And it looks like it draws from a lot of science about like what are the best measures of relationship satisfaction and happiness. I was trying it out after I saw the presentation, and there's a lot of questions that I found to be really interesting, like how engaged are you in this relationship? How much of yourself have you put into it? If you were to like overlay you and your partner, like are you like forming a we concept? And then you can track it over time. The AI will tell you like checkup points for like, oh, how do you do a better job? Should you leave this relationship? Is it clearly not satisfying to you? And it was just a really interesting way of like, if you don't have a therapist that you're going to for your relationship and you don't have friends who can be really good check-in points, you can turn to an app, and the app can literally, by drawing from relationship science and embedding it into an AI-powered app, it allows you to actually do a pretty good job of checking in with your relationship and learning about how to do it better or whether it in fact should end.
But this is a much bigger industry, relationships. It's a much bigger size than it is dating. So it's a big industry, relationship management. And I think that, so just being able to figure that out where you're at personally is a big deal. So it's a self-assessment. A self-assessment, but this is it's a dating conference, but that never ends. That's what he's about. It never ends. Right?
Yeah, I think he actually has a really fun play because we addressed that at some point in the conference. I forget when we addressed like dating is this tiny little fraction of human relationships, and we were wondering why the dating industry is only $4 to $6 billion. Like, what's going on there? Why is it that like makeup alone is like 200 billion? Like,
you met
the
somebody,
numbers
you're
are
out.
crazy.
You
like,
met somebody, you're out. You got married, you're out.
How do we? I think if we start incorporating better technologies into the dating apps, those technologies can also be used to power what happens after dating. If we can start closing those loops, finding ways of adding value to our users after they've already made the match. That like there was a phase around 2013, 2014 when a bunch of relationship apps hit the market, but they all fizzled within a year.
Yeah.
And it was really weird because everyone thought like, there's hundreds of millions of people in relationships, and I think it was like 50% of people in America are already married.
Yeah.
So like, what do you do for them? Are they being served? Is their relationship being served? Are they likely to be users? And I don't know. I actually don't know why all of those apps crashed so heavily.
It would be interesting to call the owners and ask them.
Yeah, I would love to have like them in a future conference, like the graveyard of like the apps that like we thought were going to do really well because there's such a huge market size for it.
Gotcha.
I think a lot of it just comes down to like, if you're already in a happy relationship, you don't necessarily look like, if you're not injured, you don't go to the doctor. Most people go when they need the treatment or they need the help. There's a gaping wound. That's when you go. And so for dating apps, it's like, I'm single, I'm lonely, I'm frustrated, so that's when I'll turn to the dating app. If I'm in a relationship, it may not be a thing that I even think of.
So about that, just to give you like some under the hood information.
Yeah.
I don't know for relationship, meaning couples, meeting other couples to do stuff and meet new friends. But I do know that on Invite and Meet, you have women, mostly women, looking for other women for friendship. Around 25% of the women are doing that. So there's and you're seeing this market also being penetrated by Bumble
BFF
with their BFF already for now 2 years or
Gotcha.
year and a half. So there's a demand for that too. Yeah.
But there's still single people though, or like women looking for friends, but it's not like people in relationships.
Some of them are pure. They are in a relationship and they're purely on the app for other women to find. That's not the full 25%, no.
Okay.
This is a much smaller percentage.
I still think Groupon is the best relationship.
Oh yeah?
What are you gonna do? No, I'm kidding. But like, what do you do with your partner? You're like, okay,
Oh yeah, to
Spotify.
find what to do.
ideas for what to do. Yeah.
But I don't want to jump around, but I want to mention the league and Meredith Davis and hearing her talk. I thought that was very fascinating and very interesting. And I also, because I've been in the business for 17 years, I'm listening to her and I'm thinking, my God, like, I'm hearing people rediscover like events. I've been in the event business for 17 years, so I've heard it all. But she's like, it's discovering this about it just now, and that's fine. I mean, it's fine. But it was very interesting to me hearing your talk and hearing how the league is thinking, just how the company thinks, just their thought process, and how they're going in deep and they're getting into these events and they're coming back out and and she was extremely open with her numbers, which I was kind of shocked at.
Well, that's honestly like one of the big wow factor about this whole conference is how people are
So
just you know what? Okay, we're competitors, but this is
It
a
doesn't
safe
matter.
haven where everybody's going to be like open about their stuff, and you know we all really benefit from it.
Yeah.
We all really do.
The
benefit.
goal is always growing the pie. Like this conference has always been. It's not about making people feel nervous about their competitors being here. It's about how do we take a $4 to $6 billion industry and make it a $40 to $60 billion industry. What does that take? And a lot of times it takes people being very honest about where they're failing or where they're struggling or potentially where they are succeeding, but they're so small still that like everyone else should be alerted that hey, this is the thing we need to collaborate on.
So,
Good point.
so let's go to the real big issue for the whole conference. Let's just go right to the big issue. It was like
Go
a big
ahead.
elephant in the room.
Go ahead.
It was Facebook.
You think so?
Absolutely, for the people coming to this conference. And everyone has an opinion about Facebook. And I have a very strict opinion, and it's pretty negative, and that's just my opinion. But everyone, and then hearing all the opinions, and you don't know what's going to happen, and there is change afoot in the whole dating industry, because I've been in and out of it for 17 years. For me, there's very little time there's a massive shifting, and it's like an earthquake. So people were very interested in that question: what is going on Facebook, and to hear people's opinions. And
So what's your opinion then about that?
very strict opinion, because remember, there's iterations, and I see the same thing happen, and I see a failure, and I see it happen again. 5 years ago, there was 10 Facebook apps, date a friend of a friend, and they were implemented just like Zynga in Facebook. They were popping,
Yeah.
and they were here, and they were raising capital, and they were busting it out, and they all failed. Simply because, I'll make it simple, you don't want your mother to know who you're dating. So I just don't think people view Facebook as a safe place to date.
I think another
Mainly
reason
for
they
information. They
failed.
don't want the information.
Another reason they failed is that Facebook can, in 1 second, one flip of the switch, cut them off
Yeah.
if they think that they're becoming too competitive or excluding user data. And so as soon as that happens, because they were doing that, a lot of times
Yeah.
they were gathering a lot of data that Facebook didn't want you to have, and they were exporting it elsewhere.
Look, it's
and
a
that
s-
was making Facebook
It's
pissed.
the same reason why if I told you, oh, LinkedIn's getting into dating, you're like, no way, it's not gonna happen, because that's not, expectations going to LinkedIn are, I'm gonna be doing business interaction. Expectation of Facebook and is family friend interaction. That's why I tell people don't do business on Facebook, because someone will post a crazy picture of you or say something politically about you, and then they'll be like, I hate that guy. And that's what happens. It happens to people.
Everyone's skeletons are
day
all
long.
deeply buried on their Facebook closet.
Yeah. So Facebook, you got to keep your Facebook like a closed wall. And talking about that's why dating and Facebook don't mesh. I don't care. That's my opinion. Like, no, it's so funny because they were like, my mother wants to. Well, yeah, my mother too. She's single. She's 79. Of course, she can go date on Facebook. She doesn't care if I see who she's dating. But I care if I
So
was single.
the general-
if she's single, I'm dating.
What seemed to be the consensus is that people over 45, 50
I'm like 55
will
higher.
use Facebook for dating
Sure.
enthusiastically because they don't want to make
Absolutely.
new profiles. They're afraid of new things. They know Facebook, and if
There
you
you
just
go.
say, "Hey, if you want to meet other people that are
Look.
single, you can just go in this little pathway," and then they're like, "Oh, I can do that." I already
But if
have a
Facebook,
profile."
if Facebook's team and Zuckerberg knew that that's their market, he would shut it down. Like,
I don't know where we cut out recently, but on the topic,
okay.
we were talking about Facebook. I think one of the comments that came during the final panel was from Dave Wiseman, who's the CEO at Scamalytics. And I found that he was a brilliant man. You know, he's someone who's founded multiple companies. Scamalytics is a really, like, I love his presentation. I love how he just like rolls off like, these are the problems we're facing and as an industry, these are the ways we're tackling it. It was super informative. It's the kind of, like, it makes you want to be like, oh, I trust you. I love that you are clearly like leading the market on this. But beyond that, he gave a conversation point during the Facebook debate where he said, I forget how he described it. He said like back in like the 60s.
oh yeah,
We
the
had
camera?
like
History
or,
of
like,
the camera.
he started in the 1800s. Like
History of the camera.
Cameras used to be like the best technologists in the world were required to take a single photo, and then flash forward to today, everyone has a camera built into the phone whether they like it or not.
Yeah, built
Sometimes
into
3
something
cameras.
else. Yeah.
He was saying that what could happen for dating is that it used to be like we just have matchmakers who are like the most technologically advanced people in terms of like having all the data of like all the logs about who wants what are the people in my town, in my tribe, and then we got to the point where we have these dating apps that have all the data in all these different silos, and it could come to the point where Facebook becomes the platform. Whether or not it's Facebook, one platform,
Or another platform.
dating itself, dating as a concept can be implemented in other devices, in other platforms, in the same way that cameras, taking pictures, is now not just like you have to buy your own special camera or like have a special advanced degrees or software. It's
Yeah.
simply you have it as a lay user because it's in all the products you have.
This
So-
has happened over and over.
So like what
it
would
became part of another product.
I like that he was thinking so far ahead about, like, he was like, stop talking. If you're only talking about market leaders right now, you're wasting your time. You're pissing into the wind
That's what
because
I
the
said.
market's already moving in ways that are bigger than you can think. So he challenged us to think a lot more about what does it mean for dating as a concept to be embedded in other structures. And that made me think a lot about, like, what are the other technologies we see moving in the landscape? We see ambient audio. We went from like 0% of cars being shipped with access to the internet and ready listening for like podcasts and things like that to by 2020 we're expecting 95% of cars to be shipped with ambient connected audio, and that's crazy. Like
Well,
that's a big shift. And like what are other shifts where like
Well,
maybe
there's a big
dating, maybe your
virtual-
Alexa
there's a
assistant will
complete-
become part of every app you use. It's like you have
There's
a virtual
complete-
dating assistant.
A complete virtual world coming, however
yeah.
it comes. And that virtual world could have all the dating.
The sad part is that I almost feel
We
like we
don't know.
need it because we've been doing such a bad job at connecting in the real world with one another that it's almost like our last hope is virtual. Because
Come
people
on, guys!
have
You
failed
forget,
so
you forget about
miserably.
you forget about our company. Invite me. What's the purpose of Invite? Can you tell me against it?
The purpose of your company
Yeah.
is to facilitate real-world, positive, enthusiastic, happy interactions between people who have shared interest in things that they want to do
And that
How's that?
effortlessly,
effortlessly.
with the minimum effort possible, our required.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
if,
pretty
if
true.
you guys turn out to be the market leaders, I will be extremely excited because I
don't-
want to see it.
I
I
don't
want to be
say-
more optimistic
like,
about
the
people's
goal
potential.
is not to be like the market leader. Like honestly, the goal is to recognize, as you were saying, Dan, that there is a trend towards the virtual world, the digital, humanification of our personalities into the digital world. And we just want to say, like there's opportunities for you to go. There's opportunities for you to use different systems so that you can like perhaps optimize a little more your real life without having to be always on the online and going through the gimmicks of online.
I'm actually grateful for your talk because you gave stats that made people's heads turn.
Yeah.
When you said, I forget, there were some stats that you listed where it's like 40% of our users, like in the industry, it's like the
Yeah.
average, it's like 1% of users,
Yeah.
or no, like 99% of conversations are empty
Oh,
threads.
yeah.
And you
Us,
said
it's-
like,
it's a fraction of a percent that are empty.
yeah, so like you have literally completely the opposite of the
Completely, yeah.
industry.
Completely.
And when people heard that, they're like, wait, what?
I know.
I literally saw people's jaws drop because they're like, wait, how is it possible that your users are having no empty discussions? Like we have 50,000 matches and only like 10 conversations going on. What are you doing here? And I love that you were like willing to share that because that makes people think, oh, that might be the future.
Yeah.
Like when
Yeah,
you start
it's
showing numbers, that was
what
like when Tinder showed their early growth numbers, people were like, how is that possible? Like, how did one user just refer 200 people to the platform? Like, what's going on here? And then that's what makes heads turns and what makes innovation start to actually track things that matter. So like, if people are realizing, oh, if we change certain things about how we engage, how we design our app, suddenly we can see users actually happy, actually engaging.
But I will say one thing, because this is related to the project I'm working on, is I see the future, and it's already happening because I could show you on Bubble and the League, and maybe even with your stuff as well, that there's non-dating stuff integrating with the dating industry. It used to be almost taboo for that to happen,
Yeah.
but whether it's events or it's deals or it's online other things, that dating, whether it's Facebook or not, the dating industry is morphing into being integrated with other stuff.
Yeah.
Which are what? What do you mean by other stuff?
Other stuff.
Instagram as one example. Facebook login
other
as
things.
one example.
Other
Yeah,
things,
yeah, gotcha.
other
And
stuff.
if you start applying, let's say
even
we
other
apply
businesses,
AI to your linked
other
Like
Instagram.
Facebook with dating, for example.
Yeah, it's just well,
Full
I'm saying
integration
I'm
everywhere.
saying deals, getting money, saving, buying insurance, other industry.
Yeah.
The reason
Background
that,
checks.
the reason that's going to happen in this industry is the dating industry is a tiny industry compared to e-commerce and other industries, but the dating industry is the source of data and information, and that is why I'm involved in a certain project related to that. But it used to be almost taboo in the past. In other words, if you go on Bumble and the League, there's like we just saw an email where there's a Netflix deal on Bumble. Or the league. It was the league.
Yeah,
so,
the league.
The league. So that integration was unheard of 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Today, that integration is starting to happen.
And now it's cool. And now it's cool for dating apps to add Spotify, to add Instagram links. Like, that's amazing. It's huge forward progress.
It's different.
Because dating is now becoming a social phenomenon, not a explicitly sexual phenomenon.
That's the thing that I'm trying to figure out myself. Like, is that really going on?
Well, look, I have just recently bought the Oculus Go, right? You've heard of Oculus Go? You know what I'm talking about?
The VR headset.
It's basically the first standalone VR headset. It's not
not Microsoft.
You don't have sensors around you, so you don't know where you are in space, but you are literally just using the VR for the VR itself, so you're not moving around. And you can go into what they call it's virtual rooms, and you can go on virtual dates, and you can
you learn how to date better?
And
with
you can
virtual
actually
people?
go into like a movie, like outdoors movie theater on a big screen.
Much better than a cheap
And
Google
sit
one, right?
down, choose your seats, and sit down next to someone, and have like a date watching
Dude,
Shrek
I would
3,
do that in
for
a heartbeat.
example.
And it's with a real person, right? Like another
It's with
person
a
wearing the
real
headset
person.
somewhere else in the world joins you in that room.
It's their avatar.
Just like the Microsoft.
You don't even have to
It's
get out of
their
bed.
avatar.
You know what happens when we do that? We become, what was that movie where it's all the people living in space, sitting in theirs in a reclining chair? Wall-E.
Wall-E.
So everyone's gonna be in their virtual world the whole time, just like never
Yeah.
moving, because you don't have to get out of your bed anymore. There's no risk.
So
You just-
the
Great movie, by the way.
when,
Wall-E was one of my favorites.
you saw Mark Zuckerberg, and he was doing a VR one like that, where he was traveling around, and it was just his face and stuff.
Yeah.
I did see that video. I watched it
Okay.
carefully. And but the tool you have it just to play with it. You have a dev environment. Is that what you're doing? You're developing a little bit, or you're just playing with it?
No, I'm just playing with it. It's the Oculus. It was bought by Facebook, and they just released it. It's
Oculus.
Facebook is taking over the world.
I went
so
to
just
University
in
of
case you haven't
Maryland where
heard of it yet.
he went to my school, and they built Oculus Foundry.
Oh yeah.
And so I haven't followed it carefully, but they've been sitting on that for a long time.
Now, full disclosure, I think I'm going to return the thing because it's useless. It's just honestly, it's like super
it's
useless.
just so early.
It's so useless. Like I have it at home,
what are you gonna do with
and all I can do is buy stuff that are making
You can't
me
walk through the
waste
park?
time because it's all games.
You can't like take a walk in nature or something.
No, you can't even walk
You could
because
try.
it's not.
Make sure someone films you, then it goes viral.
You don't have the sensors around you to know like where you are,
okay.
so you cannot even walk or get closer to an object. You
Like
have
true
to,
VR at this point is you need 6 degrees of freedom. You need to have your hands become the handsets and to be able to engage with the world around
much
you.
more attractive.
That's when you get really lost in it. I've actually had VR when I've gone into it break the physics engine of my brain. So that like
You feel like I've
VR
done it myself with just the cheap ones.
Yeah.
You're like, wow, what's going on? You're like, where
Roller
am I?
coaster.
No, not even that
The
part.
Google,
though.
like the
Not
Google
that
like
part.
one. I put
Yeah.
the little box. I've
Yeah.
done that one.
It's more than that. It's because that's when you're in it. I'm talking about when you're out.
Oh,
You have such a profound and transformative experience in authentic VR where you have 6 degrees of freedom that when you
leave
come
that-
out, your brain has already acclimatized to that
Yeah.
new
God.
realm. And so when you're out in the real world, you're like, wait a second,
Yeah, where am I?
what is physics? Like,
Yeah.
there's a game called Super Hot where like if you stop moving, time stops moving.
Yeah.
And your brain learns that is reality
Yeah.
when you're in that environment. And so if a car is coming at you and you stop moving in VR,
Yeah.
the car stops. But then you go out to the
So
real world,
I'm
you
sorry,
take the
guys, but
headset
I
off,
need
and
to
then
go.
you will
So we're
die.
gonna finish up
Yeah.
with Dan Gudema from Honey and Predating Speed Dating.
Great. Alexandre Lang-Willar, co-founder of Invite and Meet, which is an iOS and Android app. You can find it on the app stores now.
And I'm Steve Dean from the Internet Dating Excellence Association, helping push the industry forward. So, thank you everyone for listening.
Let's push the boundaries of our human interaction when it comes to digital love.
Wow.
Future is virtual reality.